If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps my channel grow and I will make more good videos for you.
Under the fluorescent lights of Westbridge Tower's 53rd floor, Asha shuffled through quarterly reports like her life depended on it, which it kind of did. Her desk, pristinely organized, sat in the shadow of a glass wall separating her from the office of the man who had unexpectedly become the center of her every waking thought. Kieran Blackstone, billionaire, CEO, untouchable, except he wasn't, at least not to her, not anymore. Asha hadn't meant to fall for him. The internship was supposed to be a resume booster, nothing more. But Kieran's razor-sharp charm, his intense gaze, his voice like velvet laced with danger, it had all snuck past her defenses before she even realized she was building any. Still, she had rules, and the first was simple: never get involved with someone you work for. But rules were easier to write down than to live by, especially after that night. It had started with a late meeting, just the two of them, going over a product launch. The lights were dimmed, the city lights glittering through the windows, soft jazz playing from his speakers as if fate had its own soundtrack. Cued. She leaned over his shoulder to point something out on the screen, and he turned, their faces, suddenly, inches apart. There was a pause, pregnant, electric, and then he kissed her. No warning, no hesitation, just heat, lips, tongue, hands. The reports lay forgotten on the floor by the time they pulled apart, breathless and confused. The next morning, nothing was said. Business resumed as if nothing had happened, but every glance between them now felt like an unfinished sentence, every meeting a minefield of unspoken want. Now, weeks later, Asha found herself spiraling in a mess of desire, ambition, and confusion. He hadn't kissed her again, but his presence lingered, his eyes following her in meetings, his voice slightly softer when he addressed her, his touch lingering a second too long when handing her a folder. It was like he'd lit a match and left her to burn. She wanted answers, clarity. So when she saw his calendar open with a 15-minute gap that afternoon, she didn't think, she just knocked. His voice invited her in. He was seated behind his massive desk, sleeves rolled up, jaw clenched in that way that made her chest tighten. "I need to talk," she said, shutting the door behind her. He stood slowly. "About what?" "You know what?" Her voice barely trembled. "That night, you kissed me, and ever since, nothing's made sense." He walked around the desk, closing the distance. "You think it's been easy for me?" His voice was low. "You walk into my office every day and I pretend I'm not thinking about your mouth, about how you felt in my arms." Her breath hitched. "Then why haven't you done anything?" "Because I shouldn't. You're brilliant. You've got a future." "And he faltered, then laughed bitterly. "A scandal waiting to happen." She stepped forward, heart pounding. "Maybe I don't care." He looked at her for a long moment, like he was memorizing her. Then, without warning, he kissed her again, harder this time, more urgent. This wasn't a stolen moment. It was a surrender. Clothes came undone, the couch bore witness, and every whisper that escaped their lips felt like a secret finally freed. Afterward, wrapped in his shirt, she sat beside him, unsure if they'd crossed a line or found something worth crossing lines for. But the morning didn't wait. At a.m., Asha was called into hour. The tone was formal, cold. They'd received an anonymous complaint about inappropriate relations. She played dumb, but her blood froze. That night hadn't been as private as she thought. Someone knew. Someone was watching. Back at her desk, her phone buzzed. One message: "Kieran, we need to talk now." Heart racing, Asha rose and walked to his office. But before she could knock, the door opened, not from inside, but from across the floor. The head of legal stepped out with a folder in hand, giving her a tight nod. And in that moment, she realized this wasn't just about them anymore. There were eyes on them, and someone wanted them to burn. The moment Asha stepped into Kieran's office, the tension sliced through the air like a blade. He was standing by the window, his back to her, one hand shoved into his pocket, the other gripping a whiskey tumbler with untouched liquid. Sunlight spilled over his shoulders, casting him in a golden glow that didn't soften the storm brewing inside him. He didn't turn. "You saw the message," he said, voice low, rough. "Yes," Asha replied cautiously. "What's going on?" He finally faced her. His expression was unreadable calm, but in the way oceans are before a tsunami. "Someone filed a report with our anonymous claims you and I had an inappropriate relationship. That I used my position to what?" She snapped. "Seduce me?" His jaw clenched. Manipulate you. Asha's laugh was bitter. If anything, I should be the one accused of manipulation. I came to you. We both know that's not how they'll see it. She sank onto the edge of the couch where they'd tangled only nights ago. So what now? Do I get fired? Do you? No one's getting fired. He walked over and sat across from her, his knees nearly brushing hers. I've called a lawyer. We'll get ahead of this. But someone's watching us, she said, softly. And they don't want this to stay quiet. Kieran's eyes narrowed. Which means it's someone inside. Someone close. The rest of the day blurred into tense meetings, whispered glances, and a frost of paranoia settling over the office. Asha felt like she was walking through a minefield with a target painted on her back. Every time someone looked at her, she wondered, did they know? Were they the one who reported her? At lunch, she received a message from an unknown number. You should leave before this ruins you. No signature. No clue. Just dread. She showed it to Kieran, who paled slightly before deleting it from her phone. That night, he insisted she come with him to his penthouse, arguing it was safer, more private. She hesitated, but he was right. The walls at Westbridge weren't just glass, they were lined with eyes. His home was unlike anything she'd ever seen. High ceilings, velvet drapes, and an open terrace with a skyline view that felt unreal. It smelled like cedar and coffee, and something she only now realized was him. He poured them wine, but neither drank. I didn't expect to feel this way, he said finally, staring into the darkened city. You make me reckless. Asha approached slowly, reaching for his hand. I'm already past reckless. He turned toward her, and just like that, the restraint between them dissolved. His hands found her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair, and everything else, the threat, the whispers, the risk fell away. They made love slowly this time, like memorizing each other with every breath. It was the kind of night people write about, but rarely live. But in the early hours, something changed. Asha woke to find Kieran gone from the bed. She followed the low hum of voices to his private study. The door was cracked. She heard her name. She can't find out yet. Kieran was saying, I'm handling it. But if it comes out who her father really is, everything collapses. Yes, even the company. A beat. A reply she couldn't hear. No, she doesn't know. And I intend to keep it that way. Asha stepped back like she'd been slapped. Her breath caught in her throat. Her father? What did Kieran know about her father? She dressed quietly, her hands trembling. She didn't wake him. She didn't leave a note. She just slipped out into the night with her heart racing and her mind unraveling. The man she'd fallen for, the man who'd touched her like no one else, was hiding something about her past. And it wasn't small. It was enough to shake his empire. And hers. As she stepped into a cab, another message arrived on her phone. You don't know who you're sleeping with, but I do. Rain pelted the cab windows as Asha leaned her forehead against the glass, her mind spinning like a carousel gone mad. Her phone rested in her lap, that last message still glowing on the screen. You don't know who you're sleeping with, but I do. Her heart pounded with dread and confusion, images of Kieran's face, his touch, his words all flashing like broken film reels, beautiful but suddenly menacing. She had trusted him. She had laid bare every inch of herself. And yet, there he was, on the phone in the dead of night, hiding secrets that somehow involved her family, her father, a man she hadn't seen since she was a child, whose absence had always been explained by quiet sadness and half-truths from her mother. Kieran had never once asked about her background. He'd never needed to. But now, it was clear he knew something that connected their lives in ways she wasn't ready to understand. She didn't go home. Instead, she found herself knocking on the door of the only person she still felt she could trust, her best friend, Rhea. When Rhea opened the door, one look at Asha's tear-streaked face and disheveled clothes told her everything. No words were needed. Rhea pulled her inside, wrapped her in a blanket, and listened in silence as Asha spilled the entire story: every stolen kiss, every heated night, the warning messages, the whispered phone call. When Asha finally stopped, Rhea sat back, brows furrowed. Do you think Kieran used you? She asked carefully. I don't know, Asha whispered, but I think he's hiding the truth about my family. And I think whoever's threatening us knows exactly what that truth is. Rhea nodded slowly. Then it's time you start digging. For the next few days, Asha did just that. She stayed away from Westbridge, calling in sick while she sifted through every file, email, and piece of her family's history she could get her hands on. She visited old relatives, She questioned her mother, who flinched at the name Blackstone, and changed the subject every time it came up. But eventually, Asha found what she wasn't ready for: a newspaper article, dated 19 years ago. A man named Dev Khanna, a junior executive at Blackstone Industries, had died in a car crash, under mysterious circumstances. The man was her father. She knew the name, but what she didn't know, what the article revealed, was that he had been under investigation for whistleblowing. He had discovered financial fraud at Blackstone, and just days before he was set to testify, he died. The article hinted at foul play. No charges were filed. The case was buried. Asha's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the grainy photo of her father. Then her gaze slid to the man in the background of the image. Younger, sharper, but unmistakable. Kieran Blackstone. Her entire world tipped sideways. The man who had touched her like no one ever had, the one she had trusted with her body. Her soul had been involved in the same company her father had tried to expose. Whether he was guilty or not didn't matter. He knew, and he had kept it from her. Fueled by heartbreak and fury, she returned to Westbridge like a woman reborn. She walked through the halls with purpose, ignoring the stares, brushing past HR like they were invisible. She didn't stop until she stood in front of Kieran's office. She didn't knock. She burst in. He was behind his desk, startled, but rose instantly when he saw her. "Asha, don't," she said, voice shaking. "You knew who my father was. You knew what happened to him." He stared at her, expression unreadable. "Yes," he said quietly. "I did." The confirmation shattered her. "And you didn't think I had the right to know?" "I was trying to protect you." "From what? The truth? Or from hating you?" He stepped forward. "I didn't know the full story until recently. And when I did, I was scared. Not of the truth of losing you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You already did." She turned to leave, but he called after her. "Wait, there's something else." She paused, trembling. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains the original whistleblower file, the one your father compiled. It was hidden, buried deep in our system. I only found it 3 weeks ago. I was going to show it to you. I swear." She hesitated. "Why give it to me now?" "Because you deserve the truth, and because someone else is trying to silence it." At that moment, a loud explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered, alarms blared, screams echoed from the hallway. Kieran's face went white. That came from the server room. Asha's heart pounded. "They're trying to erase the file." Kieran grabbed her hand. "We have to get out, now." As they ran, smoke curling through the hallway and emergency sirens screeching, Asha realized the game had changed. This wasn't about a scandal anymore. It was about survival. And someone was willing to destroy everything to keep the past buried, but not if she could help it. The chaos engulfing Westbridge Tower was apocalyptic. Smoke poured from the lower floors as red strobe lights bathed the halls. In panic, Kieran gripped Asha's hand tightly as they raced down a back stairwell, each step reverberating with alarms and terror. People were screaming, some running with phones pressed to their ears, others coughing and choking from the thickening smoke. But Asha wasn't thinking about the fire. She was thinking about that flash drive now clutched in her palm, warm from her grip and heavier than anything she had ever held. It contained the secrets her father had died for, truths that Kieran's family, and perhaps Kieran himself, had kept buried for nearly 2 decades. When they finally emerged into the night, paramedics and firefighters swarmed the plaza like bees around a burning hive. Flames flickered from the 20th floor, glass shattered in loud pops, and the scent of smoke and burning plastic thickened the air. Kieran's security team rushed to him, but he waved them off. He only had eyes for Asha. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said hoarsely. "But someone did this on purpose. They were after the servers." He nodded grimly. "We have backups, but the originals? They're gone." They knew exactly where to hit. The flash drive pulsed like a heartbeat. "In her pocket." "I still have the file." His eyes darkened. "Then you're in danger, more than before." Later that night, they holed up in a private residence outside the city, one of Kieran's lesser-known estates, a secluded glass-walled house surrounded by woods and silence. It was the kind of place people disappeared into. Asha sat in front of the fireplace, wrapped in a sweatshirt, staring at the flickering flames as the weight of everything settled on her chest. Kieran returned from a secure call, face tight. "The fire marshal's calling it suspicious. Accelerants were found." Asha looked up. "Any suspects?" No, but I have a list of people who had server access, and a few board members who stood to lose everything if that file went public. She swallowed. Including your uncle, the acting CFO. He met her gaze. Especially my uncle. She took a deep breath. Kieran, did you know about my father before you met me? Before we? His shoulders fell. No, I didn't know the full story until you mentioned your last name in passing one day. It rang a bell. I looked into it, and when I saw the overlap, I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid you'd think everything between us was a lie, and now, I don't care about my name, or this company, but I care about you. And I want to help make this right. She stared at him, torn between lingering distrust and a longing that refused to fade. Then she reached into her pocket and handed him the drive. Then help me expose them. The next few days were a whirlwind. Kieran hired a private cybersecurity firm to extract and authenticate the documents. Asha contacted a journalist, Mira Shah, one of the few reporters her father had trusted. They arranged a secret meeting in an underground parking garage, the kind of place thrillers took place in, not real life. But this was real now. Deadly real. As Mira copied the files and listened to the story, her eyes grew wide. If this is all true, it's going to destroy Blackstone Industries. Asha nodded. Good. But hours later, just as they returned to the estate, Asha's phone rang. It was Ria. She answered immediately. Ria? Her best friend's voice was trembling. Asha, someone was here. They ransacked my apartment. They were looking for you. I heard one of them say your name. Asha's stomach dropped. Are you okay? I'm fine. But you're not. You need to go to the police. She hung up, hands trembling. Kieran was already watching her, face pale. They're escalating, she whispered. Now they're threatening the people I love. He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. We can disappear for a while. I have places, safe houses, offshore resources. We can vanish until the story breaks and the heat dies down. And then what? She said, eyes burning. We live in hiding forever? He didn't answer, because he couldn't promise safety. Not now, not anymore. That night, Asha couldn't sleep. She wandered the quiet house, stopping in the study, where the first drafts of her father's whistleblower report blinked across the screen. She stared at the last paragraph. If this reaches you, then I am already gone. And all I ask is that you finish what I started. Protect the innocent. Let the truth breathe. She touched the screen, whispering, I will, Dad. A creak behind her made her jump. She turned. It wasn't Kieran. It was a man she'd never seen before, dressed in black, holding a silenced pistol. Sorry, he said, almost kindly. You weren't supposed to make it this far. A gunshot rang out, but it wasn't his. He crumpled to the ground, and behind him stood Kieran, gun smoking, eyes wide and wild. He'd shot him. He'd saved her. But as the man gasped his last breath, he croaked out a single sentence that froze Asha to the bone. You don't get it. He was part of it too. And then he died. Asha looked at Kieran, at the gun, at the body, at the blood, now pooling into the carpet, and for the first time, she didn't know if the man she loved had just saved her, or silenced the only person who could have told her the whole truth. The silence after the gunshot was thunderous. Asha stared at the body on the floor, her mind spinning as if the walls themselves had tilted. The man's final words echoed like a curse. He was part of it too. Kieran stood frozen, the pistol limp in his hand, his face unreadable. Blood smeared across the polished wood floor like a signature neither of them could ignore. Kieran, Asha said slowly, backing away, her voice brittle. What did he mean? Part of what? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hand shook, and finally he placed the gun down on the desk like it had burned him. I don't know. He was lying. He had to be. Was he? She asked, her eyes hardening. I swear, Asha. His voice cracked now. I'm not the enemy. Everything I've done, it's been to protect you. But from what? She demanded, fists clenched. From the truth? From my own family's murder? Or from the company your father built on blood and lies? His jaw locked. You think I would lie to you now? After all this? She didn't answer. She couldn't, because in that moment, doubt seeped into every corner of her mind. Her father's death, the fire, the threats, the hitman, and now, this? They had to call someone. She knew it, but they couldn't go to the police. Not yet, not when corruption ran through the veins of Blackstone's empire and likely reached far beyond. Mira Shah was already working on the story, but even she wouldn't be able to protect them if it all came crashing down before the truth could surface. By sunrise, the body was gone, moved, erased. Kieran had made a call to a private cleanup crew, people Asha didn't even want to imagine existed. But what terrified her more was how easily he knew how to do it. Later that morning, Kieran revealed a folder thick manila and locked inside a vault she didn't even know existed in his house. "These are the original Blackstone ledgers," he said. "The ones my uncle and his partners buried. Your father wasn't just blowing the whistle on fraud. He discovered illegal weapons sales, offshore accounts, ties to foreign interests." Asha flipped through the papers, bile rising in her throat. "This is treason." "It's worse," Kieran murmured. "It's corporate war." And somewhere in those papers, buried like a bomb waiting to go off, was a contract. Her father's contract, with notes scribbled in the margin, his handwriting. And on the bottom, one name signed beside the original documents that transferred. "Project Oversight to Dev Khanna, Kieran Blackstone Sr." Asha looked up, eyes wide. "Your father?" Kieran nodded. "He approved it all. And when your father tried to go to the feds, they silenced him. I didn't know until a few weeks ago. And by then, you were already in bed with me," she finished, bitter. "I was already in love with you." She stood. "Then prove it. Help me leak this. All of it." He hesitated only a moment. "I will. But you need to know something first." Asha turned to him, heart pounding. "What now?" Kieran exhaled sharply. "You're not the only one who lost a parent to this. My father's death, that private plane crash they called an accident, I went along with it for years. But after I found these files, I think your father wasn't the only one they silenced." Everything in Asha went still. "You think your own family killed your father?" He nodded. "Because he wanted out." Suddenly, it wasn't just her vendetta. It wasn't just love turned to pain and betrayal. It was two bloodlines colliding, two children of men erased by greed and power. And together, they held the last remaining proof. They needed to act fast. Mira had secured a safe drop for the documents and set the publication date for the expos in 48 hours. But before they could deliver the files, Ria disappeared. And a warning. No calls. Her apartment had been cleared out, her phone disconnected. Asha found a note slid under her door. One line: "Give them the files, and you'll never see her again." Panic tore through her. "They've got Ria." Kieran paced the room. "They know we're too close. They're making a play. They're going to kill her if we release the story." He turned to her, eyes dark. "And they'll kill 1,000 more if we don't." The next night, Asha received a video on her phone. Ria, tied to a chair, a bruise on her temple. A masked man stood behind her. "You have 24 hours, he said. "Give us the drive. Walk away, or she dies." The message cut out. Asha screamed. Kieran punched the wall, but there were no options that didn't end in blood, until Kieran pulled out one final card. "I have a double," he said. "An old strategy for decoy security. We can fake the handoff, lure them out, while they chase the wrong package. We move Ria." "It's insane," Asha breathed. "It's all we've got." And so the next night, in an abandoned warehouse, Asha watched through binoculars as a courier posing as her handed off a decoy flash drive to a man in a dark trench coat. Kieran's men followed the target. The rest of the team breached the holding site where Ria had been traced, but when they arrived, the room was empty, except for a phone. On it, a video was already queued. Ria's voice, weak and trembling. He knew. Kieran knew. He was part of it the whole time. He knew they would come for me. He let it happen. "Please, Asha, don't trust him." The screen cut to black. Asha stood frozen in place, and behind her, Kieran whispered, "Don't watch that." She turned slowly, the betrayal crawling back into her bones like fire under the skin. "Kieran," she whispered, "what did you do?" Asha couldn't breathe. The cold of the concrete beneath her feet, the echo of Ria's voice, the final words, "He let it happen," coiled around her like barbed wire. She stared at Kieran, the man she had once trusted more than anyone. The man whose love had set her world on fire. And now, she couldn't tell if that fire had been passion, or a slow burning trap. "What did you do?" she repeated, her voice shaking. Kieran's jaw flexed, his eyes unreadable. "That video is a lie, is it?" she whispered. "Because I keep finding out things you forgot to tell me. Like that you knew my father, that you had access to the whistleblower files, that you have private security teams and disposable bodies on command. And now this Ria's voice, begging me not to trust you." He stepped toward her, but she backed away. "Asha," he said, quieter now. There are things I can't explain, things I never wanted you to be part of. But I swear to you, I didn't hurt Rhea. I've done everything to keep you both safe. Then where is she? Asha snapped. Why is she still missing? Why would she say those things unless she believed them? Because someone made her believe it, he said. Whoever's behind this, they're not just after files, they want to destroy you from the inside out. They want you isolated, alone. Well, congratulations, she whispered, the tears finally breaking loose. It's working. She turned and walked out into the night. She didn't go back to the safe house. She didn't answer Kieran's calls. She took the last working backup copy of her father's files and disappeared into the underbelly of the city, sleeping in cheap motels under fake names, using burner phones, and staying off-grid. Every night, she pored over the documents, trying to decode the deeper web. Beneath the numbers, there were names, real names hidden in acronyms and initials, politicians, executives, judges, and at the center of it all, Marcus Blackstone, Kieran's uncle, acting CEO, ruthless, untouchable. But the deeper she went, the more twisted it became. The same shell companies that laundered Blackstone funds were tied to the hitman who had broken into Kieran's estate, to the offshore account that had funded the fire at Westbridge, and to the encrypted payment logs monthly, untraceable, made out to an alias she couldn't pin down, until she matched the time stamps with something Kieran once told her. He never missed a Thursday board meeting. The payments always landed Thursdays. Right after the meetings. Was he telling the truth? Or was he feeding the machine the whole time? Asha finally reached out to Mira Shah. We need to publish all of it. No redactions, no filters. Mira's voice crackled through the burner phone. It'll bring the whole thing down. Blackstone Industries, the people behind it, half the city's leadership. But are you ready for the fallout? No, Asha said, but I'm more ready than I am to keep running. The next morning, Mira published the Blackstone files. A 23-page expose dropped like a nuclear bomb across the internet. It included video clips, financial records, eyewitness testimony, even a grainy image of the man believed to have killed Dev Khanna. It went viral in minutes, and then the city caught fire. Stock markets plunged. Protests erupted outside Blackstone's skyscrapers. The mayor announced an emergency investigation. A full-blown federal task force was assembled. Arrest warrants were drafted for board members and senior partners. 2 executives tried to flee the country and were caught at the private terminal. But Marcus Blackstone vanished. No trail, no calls, no flights. Just gone. And so had Kieran. Asha hadn't heard from him since the night of Rhea's video. And even though her heart told her to hate him, the ache of his absence cut her deeper than anything else. Was he running because he was guilty? Or because he was protecting her in the only way he knew how? 3 days later, she found out. A package arrived at her motel room. No name, no return address. Inside, a flash drive, a note, and a photo. The note read, I had to disappear before they made me disappear. I know I've lost your trust, maybe forever, but this is the last piece of the puzzle. Do with it what I couldn't. I'll be watching from far away, always. The photo was of Rhea alive, in a hospital bed, weak, but safe, heart hammering. Asha plugged in the drive. It contained a single video, dated the day before her father's death. In it, Dev Khanna faced the camera, bruised and tired. If you're watching this, he said, it means I didn't make it. And if Kieran Blackstone is still alive, then he's the only one left who can bring this truth to light. He's just a boy now, but he's not his father. He's better, Asha gasped. The next file was a clip of Kieran, 16 years old, in a school uniform, crying, begging his father to stop a meeting. You're going to kill him, he said. Dev didn't do anything wrong. Then the screen went black. Asha collapsed to her knees, tears spilling freely. All this time, Kieran had known, and he'd been trying, in his own way, to stop the darkness from consuming both of them. A knock on the door jolted her. She stood, cautiously peeking through the peephole. Rhea stood there, alive, shaken, and beside her, in the shadows, Kieran, not smiling, not running, just waiting, for forgiveness, for the ending neither of them could rewrite. And as Asha opened the door, she didn't know if this was closure or a new beginning, but she knew this, it wasn't over yet. The door creaked open slowly, the heavy silence pressing down like a storm cloud. Asha stared at them. Rhea, alive but ghost pale, and Kieran, disheveled and quiet, his eyes hollow from sleeplessness and guilt. Her heart stumbled in her chest. She should have slammed the door. She should have screamed at him, demanded explanations, run the other way. But instead, she stepped aside. Come in, she whispered. They entered without a word, as if even they weren't sure they belonged anymore. Rhea reached out first, pulling Asha into a trembling hug that nearly broke her. They kept me in a basement. No light, no food for days. I thought I'd die in there. Asha held her tighter. I thought so too. Kieran kept his distance, watching the reunion with haunted eyes. When Rhea finally sat, Asha turned to him. You saw the video, he said. You know what I tried to do. I saw what my father believed about you, she replied carefully. But belief and truth aren't always the same thing. So tell me everything, right now, from the beginning. He nodded slowly, then sank into the chair opposite her. When I was 16, I found out what my father was doing, funding illegal weapons contracts, laundering money, orchestrating the silencing of anyone who got in his way. Your father was the one person inside the company who stood up to him. I overheard a conversation. I warned my father. I begged him to stop. And then the next week, your father was dead. I tried to go to the press, but they shut me down. Blackstone owns everything, everyone. Asha's voice was low. So you became the heir, the perfect son. I became a prisoner, he said. They watched me constantly. I learned to play the part, but I kept copies of everything, your father's files, my own records, my father's secret ledgers. I thought, maybe one day, when the time was right, I could finish what he started. And when you met me, she asked, was I part of the plan? Kieran's eyes flickered with pain. No, meeting you was the first unscripted moment of my life. I didn't know who you were, not until later. But by then I was already into deep with you, with all of it. I was scared that telling you would mean losing you. Asha looked away. And your uncle? He's gone underground. But I found something only you can use. He placed a battered notebook on the table. Inside were handwritten schedules, passwords, diagrams of secure buildings, all leading to a single location, a remote facility outside Dubai. It's where they're keeping the last of the backups, physical ledgers, recordings, names, everything. They couldn't risk storing digitally. Why haven't the feds found it? Rhea asked, speaking up for the first time. Because it's not in Blackstone's name. It's hidden under a shell corporation registered to a dead man. But if we get there, we can destroy them. For good. It sounded like madness, like suicide. But Asha had gone too far to turn back now. Within hours, they were on a private jet, one of the few Kieran still had access to. Flying across continents, across time zones, toward the endgame. As the desert skyline blurred beneath them, Asha leaned against the cold window and thought about how far she'd come. From the intern with quiet dreams to the woman now risking her life to burn an empire to the ground. And beside her sat the man who'd both broken and protected her, a paradox wrapped in guilt and fire. When they landed, they moved under aliases. Rhea remained behind in a safe location, coordinating remotely with Mira, while Asha and Kieran made the final approach under nightfall. The compound was surrounded by electric fences, infrared sensors, motion alarms. Getting in would take every ounce of planning and luck they had. The break-in went sideways almost instantly. Asha had just slipped through the server corridor when the first alarm blared. Gunshots cracked through the halls. Kieran barked commands through a headset, trying to hold off the guards long enough for Asha to get to the vault. She reached it. Inside, cold steel shelves groaned under the weight of ledgers and hard drives. Asha grabbed everything she could carry, heart pounding, breath ragged, and then she saw it, a photo. Her father and Kieran's father standing together, smiling, and in the corner, barely visible, a third man, Marcus Blackstone, holding a contract, her father's signature already on it. Asha blinked. Her father hadn't just discovered the conspiracy. He'd been part of it. In the early days, before he tried to blow the whistle, before guilt consumed him, before they erased him. She staggered back, the weight of truth crushing her. She barely registered the explosion until it rocked the ground beneath her. Fire lit the corridor. Kieran appeared seconds later, blood trickling from a gash across his forehead. We have to go. The charges are set. This whole place will go up in 5 minutes. She shoved the documents into his arms. My father. He was part of it. Kieran. He signed it. He stared at her, silent. I don't know what's real anymore, she choked out. I do, he said. This, right here. You, me, what we choose now. They ran. The night lit up behind them as the facility exploded, a mushroom of fire roaring into the sky, erasing decades of secrets in one blinding second. They barely made it to the car. As they drove away into the endless desert, sweat and ash on their skin, silence enveloped them once more. Asha looked out the window, tears drying on her cheeks. "My father helped build the monster," she whispered. "And yours tried to protect it." Kieran nodded slowly. "And we just burned it to the ground." She turned to him. "What happens now?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But whatever it is, we write it ourselves." And somewhere, far behind them, an empire crumbled. But in the wreckage, something new stirred. Something honest, something theirs. The end.